Oh yeah. Tapi nanti concentrate after the presentation. Say.
Okay. Okay, welcome everyone to this Indonesia group, low cost, low touch information provision, parental involvement and student learning outcomes, evidence from a government implemented intervention in Indonesia by Dia Prita Drajati. My name is Firman Mitular from Indonesia Project, and I'm pleased to chair this event. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, and I would also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. This is an online event, and we will be taking questions after the speaker has finished with their presentation. Online audience can write their question in the Zoom Q&A box, and we will read them out. Our speakers today is Dia Prita Darajati. Prita is an applied microeconomist, and this is wrong, PhD candidate at ANU. She's a doctor. As of last week. Congratulations. Her research focuses on labor, gender, and social policy in developing countries, with particular interest in household behavior and economic development. She has worked with international organizations, including the World Bank and ADB, and was a Fox Fellow at Yale University. At the end of the presentation, we'll manage the Q&A with the audience, and I'd now like to invite Prita to start the seminar.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Mas Firman, for the introduction, and thank you so much for having me here. So today I'll present a joint paper together with Asep Kurniawan, Sandy Maulana, Esati, Cynthia Revina, Daniel Suyadama, and Florisa. So this project was initially started as part of the RISE project from Smeru. So in this paper, we try to kind of analyze and test and also find evidence whether providing information to parents have any impact on engagement, parental engagement, and also student learnings. So low cost, low touch information provisions, parental involvement, and student learning outcomes, evidence from a governmental implemented intervention in Indonesia. So as part of the motivation of this study, so we know that a lot of parents, of course, they care about their children education, but then most time parental investment in learning remain low because parents face certain challenges, including imperfect information about children's progress and also limited confidence to engage with schools, as well as limited knowledge of effective learning support. So based on the challenges that these parents face, we have these core questions. The main question that we try to answer is whether a public education system can reduce these frictions at a very low cost using information that is provided from teacher to parents. So before I start, going deeper into the what kind of intervention that we've done here. So we try to first we need to kind of take a step back and see what's the standard human capital story we have here. So the argument is that start from information that is provided to parents. So this will sort of improve parental beliefs and then also have an impact on home investment. And then this will eventually affect children's learning. So if parents underestimate the learning gaps or they do not know how to respond, so parents will by default invest less than they otherwise would. So by providing information, we try to shift their beliefs. And so this, but we have to be very take this with a grain of salt, because this learning gains also require that parents have to be able to translate information into effective input. So we will see whether giving information is enough to shift parental beliefs and to extend beyond that by providing better home investment and also by have an impact on children's learning outcome. So what this paper studies, so I've given you like a little bit of background before. So we try to study what's so-called a low-cost, low-touch intervention that is designed to increase parental involvement in children's education. So this intervention is very unique, I think. So this co-designed with the local government in Kebumen, Central Java, and this is implemented through existing public schools. So I will discuss this later on. So I think this is also very unique because we've kind of like use and implement it within the system that's already there. So it's not a new or like external kind of intervention that we impose to the system. And this intervention also delivered by teachers and school administrators and also funded through local government processes and implemented at a direct cost below $1 per student. So this is why we consider this as a low-cost intervention. So this allow us to study not only whether the information works, but whether it works when implemented by government at scale. So the three key contributions that this paper tried to contribute to the debates. First is that we try to provide to answer whether information able to change parental behavior in low and middle income settings, and also whether engaging parents also change teacher behavior. So this is not just about, changing home or like parents' behavior, but whether there's any like feedback from teachers that also increase their participation. And the third part is in terms of scalability. So whether this intervention that is embedded within the existing public system can generate meaningful effects without intensive kind of like external support, as I mentioned before. So this is conducted within the system that's already there. So as a setting, so perhaps like many of you already know where Kebumen is located. So it's in Central Java. They're in the south part of Central Java, near the coast. So it's located in the southern coast of Central Java. The population is approximately 1.4 million, and it's predominantly rural economy, with agriculture remaining as the important source of livelihoods. And also public school serve as the majority of primary school students. And also Kebumen is selected as partner district for an education reform initiative led by the local government.
Can you give a couple of stories behind how did you engage local government to do this? Was the initiative coming from them, or what is it? What was the story? Why they wanted to do this?
Yeah, so I think, so yeah. So partly is that also in Kebumen, their kind of like the learning outcomes is relatively low compared to other regions. But then their kind of like resources also starting to kind of like improve, like this teacher capability, school resources, but then it's not really translated into the learning outcome. So we are trying to see why there is a gap between like the resources that we put and also the outcome. So we see whether information can kind of like shift this further and also like reflect it into these learning outcomes. Yeah.
I think Dika also was interested, if I may, did the government approach RISE team or the RISE team approach there, or do you know?
Not really. Yeah. So yeah, perhaps I think like Daniel might have known that like better, like the story behind why kind of like engage with Kebumen. I think it's partly, I think if I'm not mistaken, it's also like their openness and also yeah, I think like pretty accessible within like Java. So like to kind of like have this intervention to make it like more like scalable in a like government in Kebumen. So that's a bit of, I mean, like maybe like more like deeper and detail about that. Yeah, perhaps like Daniel might have like more information. Yeah. All right. So yeah, feel free if there's any more questions. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this part maybe like answer a little bit, but maybe not pretty much on like the logistic in terms of why we chose, but a bit of like background why we chose Kebumen. So there are like several features that make a Boomen is a useful setting for studying this parental engagement, including, as I mentioned before, this educational attainment among adults, and also the children also remain low compared to the national average. And many parents have limited information about their children's academic progress. And also this communication between school and household was often infrequent and administrative, mostly administrative in nature. So learning outcomes kind of like improve over time, but still there's a substantial gap. So before the intervention, I think it's not only just exclusively in Kebumen, but many in other parts of Indonesia that parental involvement was often rather like procedural rather than instructional. So parents maybe like they become active into like school activities through school events or administrative matters, facility maintenance or financial contribution. But many of these parental engagement were less involved in instructional, including monitoring learning progress and discussing academic difficulties or communicating with teachers about learning and also supporting structured learning at home. So these are like some of the challenges. They might have, to a certain extent, parents might have, like involved into school activities or kind of supporting their children progress, but then not necessarily in the intensive margins in terms of instructional.
Question.
Yeah.
Do you actually conduct a base survey to get this information monitor them? They are not involved in monitoring
Learning progress, yes. So
you're conducting a base survey to get this information.
So yeah, so in this study we didn't have like baseline information, but we have like two end lines here, and then for like learning progress we have like in the end line survey we test whether from the school exams. So we have two end lines, so we compare from one end line to the other end line.
Yeah. So what I mean is that when you say less than what? They're less involved in.
Yeah.
Less than what?
So this is more like qualitative, I think, observations that we have. Yeah.
And there'd be a lot of variation among the parents, wouldn't there? Some who'd be educated and very concerned and involved, and some who wouldn't be. So somewhere is that captured, or maybe we're going to hear about it in the pre-existing context.
Yeah. So we also like did a kind of like heterogeneity exercise analysis as well, looking at different like parental academic sort of like higher attainment, the highest attainment, and also we look at their employment background as well. But then unfortunately, I didn't like have it here in the presentation, but yeah, we have it in the paper. Yeah.
I just saw your picture, so interesting. All the parents are moms.
Yeah.
Is that what you generally find from the study? The people you interact with, like the intervention, is basically dealing with moms.
Yeah, so I think that's a really interesting observation as well. So actually in this paper, we haven't really like explored that for like gender lens on whose parent actually, like write the report and kind of like interact with the teacher. So we didn't have, we have information about, if I understand it correctly. So I think we have, in the analysis, we haven't really explore the gender lens, whether, like the participation of women. But I think from, like more like qualitatively, I think this explains, a lot of like fathers, like they need to work and might not be able to attend parents' meeting, things like that. Yeah.
This is from the study, this picture, or it's just a random picture of school.
Yeah, I think not really. Yeah, I think this was from. But
I think this is typical.
Yeah.
And more so in the rural areas.
Yeah. So in terms of the intervention, what we did here, we have this low-cost government implemented intervention with 3 key components. So one, we have this like monthly learning progress letters. So teachers will write down the sort of what like materials that students have learned before and also what they will learn in the next month. And also, so this information will be given to parents about the materials covered and also the upcoming topics and areas where students struggled in the last month. And also we have another kind of like section on parent response. So this is still within part of the progress letter. So it's sent to parents, and then in that part we have section where parents can write down sort of like comments or feedback to teachers, to ask questions, and also to describe how parents will be able to support learning at home. And also thirdly, we have this like monthly information leaflets. So we have leaflets that we provide every month. This is like a simple practical information guidance to support learning at home that we've given this information to parents. So if I can give you a little bit of sort of like overview on. So this is how this student report looks like. So we have, so this is for example for grade 1 primary school. This is in February 2020. So mentioned that in the last month, January 2020, these children still struggle in terms of certain theme or topics within subject math and also readings, Indonesian language. So this is like, maybe you can have like a kind of like idea on like how details or what kind of information that we gather here. And then, so this is, and then this is for the next month, what the teacher will cover. So this is information that will be given to parents as well. And then here in the bottom, so parents can sort of like return back this section, return it to teacher. So this has question, kind of like an open-ended question. What would parents do after reading this report on the children's learning and leaflet? And that was given in this February, for example. And then this is sort of like the topics we have for the leaflet. So every month, this is like some topics, including the benefit of parental involvement, and also we have topics related to like how to accompany children in their learning, to provide conducive study environment, for example. So these are some of the informations that is covered in the leaflets.
And this was during COVID, so this was everything was online, is it?
Yeah, so partly kind of, so this was kind of like an unintended sort of like yeah, so like the design was actually before COVID, but then COVID happens,
Yeah.
and then we kind of like keep this project going. And so this information was given kind of like physically, actually like sent to like representative at school. So I mean, I think Kebumen is pretty like rural area, so kind of like small coverage from like schools to like students who are enrolled. So teachers can actually like giving the letters physically, and then teachers also there's like a representative, kind of like one student, kind of like giving it to the kind of like their areas and then giving and returning back to parents. So that's how we do it. Yeah.
And then all those leaflets, they were online, were they? Or because
Also giving it in the letters as well. Yeah.
the kids might have not been at school by then, or this was pre-COVID.
So the leaflets also, oh yes, students are not at school. Yeah.
So they had to have internet access, for example.
Yeah, but we giving it physically in the letters. So like packages, so sending it to at home. Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's a little tricky, and that's like how researchers need to like adapt.
Sure.
And so things can happen in
Yeah.
Could you share a bit about the monitoring of the intervention, like whether the teacher gave a similar quality to the letters, and then how was the reception from the parents? Do they respond back in the feedback? Like,
Yeah.
and what kind of parents do actually report back?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I will cover, we have information in terms of the rate, sort of like the return rate. So that's actually pretty high. So teachers actually sending back that kind of like the section back to teachers, like around 70% sending it back. But then, I mean, because I mentioned this is an open-ended question, we haven't really explored much about what teachers actually said there, but I think maybe that's also an interesting sort of like for future studies that we can explore as well. So yeah, in terms of like return rate, it's pretty high. Yeah.
Will you cover later? I'm just thinking that if I were the teachers, this is a great initiative, but it's a lot of me.
Yeah.
So how do you compensate, like in terms of the resource, to support the teachers to do this and then to be able to do this, even beyond the intervention, beyond your study?
Yeah, so I think by design also, I mean, we also like take that into consideration for sure. So we're doing it like once a month, and then also it's a pretty simple one. So like it's not a like complicated task, not super detailed. I mean, that's also related to a previous question, like how detailed. So this is like like ticking the box and then mentioning the sub theme, usually like the chapter number, because in terms of public school, it's pretty like similar, right? So we can also like kind of pretty comparable, and maybe like when they need to describe especially, and also yeah, I think pretty much is yeah, I mean there's a spatial note that they need to write, but yeah.
So teachers were just happily on board.
Yeah, I think like we also tested like how many minutes they take per student. So I think it's yeah.
I think the high response rates might be thanks to the COVID as well, because
yeah.
the parents get nothing to do.
Potentially, yeah. Yeah, so the implementation period, so like we started, so we have this like in January, so COVID happened also around March. So, but yeah, we have this implementation for around 14 months until February 2021. So this also include periods of COVID-19 related school disruption and also remote learning as well. Yeah, but then, so the learning is online, but then the letters and everything was provided physically, yes. Yeah, I think this is also like really kind of like to touch back again to what I mentioned before about like the distinctive feature of this program is that this was not an kind of like an external intervention. It's not an intensive tutoring program. It's not delivered by an like external NGO, and also not really like rely on new technology. So this is just paper based. The cost is just printing out, so that's why it's very cheap, like $1 per student for the whole intervention. And so this intervention used the kind of like ordinary machinery of the public school system. So teacher wrote the progress letters, and then school distributed the materials, and then parents return responses to school, and then the local education office will monitor participation. So these are like sort of like the process, how it happens from like teachers, and then what happened at schools, and then at home, and also what the local education involved in this year.
Sorry, dear. So did the teachers have to participate, or were they encouraged to? What was the incentive for them to participate? Because they're crucial agents, aren't they?
Yeah. So because this is also part of this program in the government, so there is this kind of part of their KPI to also produce these letters as well. Yeah. So in terms of teacher participation, that's why for teachers it's almost like 100% because teacher has to do it. But then I think the uniqueness part of also like the parents' participation, I think that's also kind of like the feedback, and also it's kind of like from teacher to parents, and then parents' information back to teachers, and what teachers also like respond to that. So it's kind of like an accountability check from like school and at home. Yeah. So to kind of like break down a little bit and see from the intervention and what this intervention try to do in terms of looking at the constraint we have. As I mentioned before, there's like several kind of like challenges that parents face in terms of kind of like taking care of their in terms of like learning progress and also accompanying their children to study. So there's several constraints here. So one is information. So, and then also agency, motivation, credibility, and scalability. So one, from information, what we did is that by providing the intervention component is by providing these progress letters. And the expected behavior that we want to see is that parents know learning needs. So parents have information about what their children struggle with and also what they need to learn next month. So these are information that parents receive. And then we hope that parents will be able to understand and know what learning needs. And then next concern is agency. So we have this like also unique part, but it's very simple, but it's pretty unique as well. We have this like response section where parents can engage back with teacher. So parents communicate with teachers. So also for motivation, we have leaflets. So we have this kind of like a public information that we give to everyone. So kind of like, yeah. So how parents can kind of involve to support learning at home. And in terms of credibility, we have teacher delivery as well. And because this is from teacher provides the information, so parents will trust the message, and also scalability is implemented by government. And we have, because there's a low cost adoption. Yeah.
On this credibility, how exactly the information distributed to parents is through the student or directly given to parents?
So yeah, so this is also kind of like creativity entrepreneurial that we did also because it was during COVID. Ideally, teacher will give it to, because it's in the envelope, and then giving it to student, and then student will bring it at home to parents. But then because of COVID, usually at every class we have this like representative. So representative, usually they're like neighbor. I mean, one student, and then they're kind of like the head of class, kind of that. And so the head of class will take that kind of like several like bunch of letters from teachers, and then sending it to like homes, like a postman kind of. Yeah. Questions there. So for the theory of change of the interventions that I've just described, so parents will have this like child-specific information. Again, so this is very unique, it's child-specific. So imagine like teachers have like 30 students in class, and every information is unique per student. And so this child-specific information, kind of like, this is also related to previous slides on in terms of the agency. So from the information they receive, so this also will improve parental agency. They will have information, they know what they need to do, and then they will act. So in terms of like, they will provide home learning investment. So that's sort of like the action that parents will involve, and then this action will lead to student learning. So at the same time, that's why, because we have this where parent can write a like section back to teachers, we have teacher responsiveness as well at this along with home learning investment. So that's like kind of like two channel that we can explore to see how it will have an impact on student learning at the end. So again, the key empirical question for this paper is whether, again, the behavioral change. So this is also, behavioral change along this chain is large enough to produce learning gains at the end. So, so the evaluation design, so this was evaluated to a randomized experiment. So we have 26 sub-district in Kebumen. So what we did, we have this like pair match randomization at the sub-district level. So this pair match is using the observable characteristic, and then we randomly assign to treatment or control status. So we have around 130 public primary schools. So like 65 will be the treatment schools and 65 the control schools. So also like the decision to randomize at the sub-district level is also to reduce the risk of spillovers through teacher and principal networks, because they often have like meetings at least like once a month, and then so like having at the sub-district level, this also reduce kind of like spillover between teachers and principals.
So the 130, is it universe? All
of
primary schools?
Yeah. Yes.
Why need pair match over here?
So this is at the because we didn't have the baseline. So we look at the kind of like an observable characteristics, yeah.
So, but the treated is randomly chosen, or what is the process? Because, yeah, how exactly the sample was taken?
So yeah, so from so we do this randomization. We have these like 130 primary schools. So we kind of like comparing like school that has kind of like similar characteristics to schools with
So the first step is that you randomly choose 65, is that
mm,
correct? And then you trying to match the 65 with the whole school in the Kabupaten, or what exactly happened?
yeah, that's the question. Yeah, I will need to double check actually. Yeah. So yeah. So yeah. So yeah, because yeah, I think like to what I remember, I think that's based on the characteristics. So we have this because it's already randomized. So I think it's also kind of because it's at the sub-district level, so not at the school level as well. So we pair match at the sub-district. So characteristic of the sub-district, yeah.
So it seems that just from that map, so all the sub-district, they will be all treated schools for the treatment, the light blue one.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the darker blue, everything will be the control.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
the
So the
randomization is at the sub-district level.
Yeah. So characteristic of the sub-district. Yeah.
Will you have a problem with power later?
Yeah, so I think that's also, but I think because we have a lot of information because this is also at the student level, right? I think we have like 7,000 students and also like from different grades as well. Yeah. Yeah. So the evaluation from, the data that we collect, we have parent survey. So we have around like 7,235 parents, and also for teacher survey, we have around 508 teachers, and student assessment around almost 8,000 students. And we also have principal surveys. We have monthly parental response sheets from treatment schools. And also that's the extra kind of sections that teachers send back to parents send back to teachers. And then also we have qualitative interviews with parents and teachers. So student learning for looking at math and also readings, we measure it around 10 months after the intervention ended. So this is the main sort of like specification. So we compare outcomes between treatment and control groups, control schools. So the outcome that we're interested in here, we have outcomes for like student, parent, and also teachers. So individual level, so student, parent, and teacher I in school J. And the treatment itself is assigned at a school level. And the case, the match pair fixed effect, which is at the sub-district level. So the main results are intent to treat estimates that captures the effect of being assigned to the program, and also to account for incomplete compliance. Also, we have this local average treatment effect that use the treatment assignment as the instrument for actual receipt of the intervention. Yeah, so this is also related to previous question from Mbaknya. So we have like the rate of kind of like the submitted response sheet, and also the whether they write something in the response sheet. So the top line with a circle, so that's the submitted one. So sort of like in terms of like nominal, and then we have this like in terms of qualitative, in terms of sort of like with that section written. So not every, sometimes like teacher just send back like blank sheet with their signature, things like that. So yeah. So we can observe here that parents consistently engage with the intervention throughout this like 14-month implementation period. So like at the beginning, nearly 90% submitted the response sheets in the first month, then kind of like taper off a little bit and stabilize around like 70-75%. It's pretty high. So around kind of like 2/3 of parents continue to write comments and feedback to teachers. So this is so that's the first result, which is that we know that parents respond from the information they receive, and then they kind of like respond and give comments and feedback back to teachers. And then the second result, we see that parental investment increase. So we're looking at several index. We have kind of like a composite index in terms of direct parental support index. It's positive and significant. And then we have also conducive study environment index, also positive and significant. And we also have parent-school communication index. So from these results, we can see that parents, they respond to information by increasing educational investment at home and engaging more actively with school. So they receive the information and then they also act from the information. So I think that kind of like chain kind of like works from, if you remember the theory of change. So we have this like agency, they receive the information and then they act from the information that they receive. Also, like I can show you a bit on what kind of like element that's covered within the index. Yeah, so for example, for parents, we have information on whether they accompany their children studying, and then whether they help children with their homework, and whether parents ask and listen to children about school and learning activities and so on. And also, so there's a lot of elements here, and also about conducive environment. So we separate between the direct support index and also conducive environment. Yeah.
So these are what you mean by educational investment home.
Yeah.
Sorry. Are these from the parents survey?
Yes.
So it's self-reported by the parents?
Yes.
Why do you need a local average trip? Is there a lot of long-term compliance with
Sorry.
the IB?
Mm.
Is good because there are non-compliance, like people are supposed to be treated, didn't get treated.
Yeah. So I think so like not every parent receive the letter and also the leaflets. So it's conditional on whether they're receiving it. But the result is not that much difference. I think it's kind of like reinforcing. And as we expect also that the IV, the local average treatment effect is larger than the average, the ITT. Yeah.
What is the ballpark estimate of non-compliance? Like 20%?
I think not that high. Yeah. I think less than 10%. Yeah. I mean, like I need to check. Yeah, but yeah, I can revert back. Okay, so this is also like from the index I mentioned before. So what kind of like action that happens at home actually? This is just a bit of like kind of like a descriptive. So we observe that parents become more likely to read with their children. They also create study schedules. Parents also more likely to follow up on study routines, and also turn off television during study time, reduce gadget use during children's study time as well, and yeah, maintain kind of like quiet learning environment and communicate with teacher about learning progress. So these are some of like the behavioral response that we observe. It's pretty broad, so it's not kind of like limited to one margin. So the index maybe, I mean it's a composite index, but I think it's also very informative to look at on like every elements as well. Yeah. So if we further like unpack a little bit on the parental response here, so we see that the intervention shift shift parental kind of like from previously that's rather passive, like it's not really like instructional, but more kind of like about like school events and etc. to more like an active engagement. So between like kind of like extensive and intensive margins, if I may say, like so it's more like an active engagement, more intensive engagement with the children. So yeah, so but we need to also kind of like from this response from parents, we need to kind of like dissect that also like further to see like the element and the type of response as well. So we have we can gather information about monitoring and also about structure, communication, and instruction. So I think from the descriptive I mentioned before, I think the intervention was like strongly affected the first three that involve like monitoring, like so parents is kind of like turn off the gadget, like take the gadget or turn off the television and etc. So and provide structure by providing like schedules, communication with teachers. But then I think there's like one kind of like element that is kind of not not that much affected by the information provided. So so this information effect on instructional quality is much less. Yeah. I think this also will kind of like explain later on why the kind of like results we have for learning outcomes. Yeah.
You have about 6 to 7 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's already from parents. Now we have teachers. So we also see teacher motivation, collaboration with parents, also positive and significant. They report student strengths and weaknesses to parents, and teacher support to individual students also positive and significant. So we know that providing information to parents, this also changes teacher behavior by increasing communication, motivation, and also support for individual students. So I think this is also what I mentioned at the beginning. So we have this kind of like, indirectly we develop this kind of homeschool accountability ecosystem. So from teachers that provide information and then sending it to parents and then parents giving it back to teachers. So we create this kind of like ecosystem where parents and teachers communicate and become more informed. So this intervention kind of like activated both sides of the homeschool relationship, where parents become more engaged and teachers become more responsive. But there is still a central puzzle. I think this also, I mean, from previous slides, I mentioned that this intervention changed parental engagement, home learning environments, parent-teacher communication, teacher motivation, teacher support. So mostly like parent and teacher behavior, but overall learning outcomes barely change. And yeah.
So how do you measure it? You haven't really shown any results.
Yeah, next. Sorry, I think, yeah. So, yeah. So that kind of like behavioral change hasn't really like translate to larger learning gains. So we see like limited average effects on students, on mathematics score, reading score. We also have survey on mathematics motivation, reading motivation, and aspiration for higher education. So we know that the behavioral response was real, but it didn't really translate into a broader learning gains. So this is kind of like a result. So we have results, so no significant impact on average, but then when we kind of like disaggregate it based on grade, we observe a strongest positive effect for the younger students, which is grade 4. So we collect exam scores from grade 4 to 6. So for grade 4, it's positive and significant. Especially in basic mathematics. So we didn't observe any effect also for readings Bahasa Indonesia. So there's also like possible explanation. This, I mean, it's take it with a grain of salt. This is kind of like qualitative, what we kind of infer from why this information doesn't really translate to learning gains. So one, I think parents may find it, and also we find it, we didn't really find learning gains on average, but when we look at this aggregate, we see learning gains for younger children. So parents may find it easier to support younger children, and perhaps also like older students require more specialized academic support. And yeah, I mean, monitoring may backfire as well, might not always necessarily like improve learning, and also greater parental involvement also sometimes reduce students' intrinsic motivation. So these are some of kind of like potential explanations in terms of our findings on learning gains. Yeah. So we see, again, this is like back to the theory of change. So we have information, I think that constraint relax. Also, we have agency, also that constraint relax. But then in terms of capability, I think we didn't see any kind of significant effect in there. So learning effects was limited. So I think beyond this information, I think the binding constraint may be beyond just information alone. So information might be useful to a certain extent to like change parent and also teacher behavior, but not necessarily their capability. So this is also some of like from the qualitative information that we gather. The reason why why information was not enough is that parents also, when they got the information, they focus on whether the homework was completed. Again, so this was mostly like an extensive margin, not really the intensive margin, the quality of their homework. It's just whether it's done or not. And yeah, whether children studied. So if they see this, the children, like opening the books and quiet, but then it's not really the quality of the learning itself, and whether children follow instruction. So yeah, so improving learning requires more than just monitoring from parents. It requires how to help children understand the concept. So this is going deeper into like the instructional capability from parents. Yeah, I mean, this is just a simple kind of like learning function, if you may. So we have these like home inputs from parents, and then teacher inputs, student motivation, and instructional quality. So I think this information, like shift function for the three parts, but not really the instructional quality. Yeah. So in terms of policy implication, what do we know? What do we learn from this study, from this intervention? So one is that we know that parents are actually reachable. I mean, parents are actually kind of motivated and eager to know about what their children are learning at school. So even this like low touch intervention, this also generate high parental response. Yeah, I mean, the pre-existing condition, previously parents, they care, but they don't really know about information, the channel of communication. They don't have the confidence and also the practical guidance. And secondly, so we know from parents, they're reachable and they responded. And also we know that teachers also responded. It's not only operated from through household, but it also changed teacher behavior. So because there's an increase of parent kind of like interaction as well by sending it's not sometimes teachers sending sometimes parents will bring back that extra section, sometimes the student will bring it. So yeah, I mean, occasionally parents will go to school and meet their teachers and communicate. So these are some of like qualitative behavior that we observe as well. Yeah, so I think the key lesson here is that information alone is not enough. So it should be paired with capability as well. So perhaps next generation intervention will also include child specific, combine what we have, child specific focused information with what like action and the improve capability of parents at home. Yeah, so this is the main finding. So we observe the behavioral change from parents and teachers, but then the average student learning student learning outcomes are limited, and mathematics outcome improve, but only for younger students. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's enough. And thank you, and welcome any questions and comments.
So thank you. Now we can move into the Q&A part, and no question online. Yeah. Okay. We start with Achok, please.
Thank you, Rita, it's very interesting. Sorry, I was half joking with the COVID comment, but the more I think about it, the less joker it seems. So what if actually the COVID time drove the result quite significantly? You know, the interaction between parents and teachers become more intensive because they have less to do at the COVID time. And the fact that actually the learning outcome doesn't change much probably also lends support to that speculation, if you like, right? I mean, maybe some of the results actually was driven by the fact that, they have more time to interact now, then they even have more time to respond to this kind of intervention, right? So if you compare with the, say, normal time, if you do this again, I'm guessing that you might be first, the response rate is probably lower. The second, maybe the parents' interaction with the children might be less because they have a lot of to do now that back normal time.
That's an interesting observation as well. But then so these studies are like randomized, right? So we compare with schools that didn't get the intervention. So within the same environment, so they both also experience COVID-19. But I mean, I also didn't preclude the possibility of like when parents actually among the treatment, they might, I mean, this is kind of like an upper bound potentially among the treatment. Yeah, but I think the results, I mean, comparing between those who not getting and get because it's happened within the same kind of like environment. So yeah. Okay.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thanks. Interesting. So a bit related to Acho's question, I would have thought there'd be more of an internet online story. Education in general is online increasingly, but at this period in particular. So I'm not sure, maybe it comes in somewhere, I don't know.
Yeah.
And related, I'd like to hear a bit more about the heterogeneity story. Because that's probably going to be crucial, isn't it? And then in which case you want to know the correlates of the outcomes which are good. Can you get that from your data?
Yeah.
It could just be the usual story, more educated, better off parents or whatever tend to devote more time to their kids, and that's that's the old story. Is this one maybe a similar story, or is it breaking the mold a little bit?
Yeah. So about the internet one, first question. So there is no kind of like technology internet element here, because I think the story is also a low cost, low touch. Like it's a simple kind of intervention. It's paper based. It's easy to fill out. It's no extra intervention. Kind of it's already like a system already embedded within it. So that's the kind of like the main interest of this study. And then secondly, on
But sorry, on that, the kids would not have been in school quite a bit of the time. So what happened?
So in terms of learning, their learning is online. But then the study is about the engagement. I think the report, the scorecard that teachers provided to parents, which is still kind of like in a conventional method. Yeah.
So online means internet. So what if they don't? What if, say, poorer families don't have access to the internet?
Oh yeah, in terms of learning, yeah. So yeah, that's going to the heterogeneity. So apparently, for internet access at that time, I think everyone has access to whatever. I mean, through mobile phones, through many different methods, or like laptop or computer. So I mean, it's different kind of like sometimes like students easier to study. I think that's also. I mean, when you mentioned, I think that's also an interesting way when, like looking at different modes of learning, like whether it's through phone or through laptop or through computer, because usually like for me, like I like having like larger screen, right? So maybe that will have an impact, like heterogeneity effect there. But surprisingly, we didn't so we have also limited capabilities in terms of splitting the samples further. So we can do by income, like whether it's high income, low income, and also student parents education background. But we didn't do for whether they study from laptop or from phone. But I think we have the information. And to answer your question on the heterogeneity, if I can give a little bit, if I remember correctly, also I think it was also a interesting discussion that the results is actually not as we expect. That apparently the parents with lower education is actually respond bigger than the higher educated parents. Yeah, yeah. So that's also one of like an interesting finding as well. Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe this is a follow-up from my previous questions about the parental involvement outcomes, as it is from a self-reported variables from the data. I was just wondering, how do the data ensure that the parent actually do the activities rather than they know what to do, so then they know what to report? Yes, like how to disaggregate that and then to link it to your like story about the basic human capital story. Like, do you have any data supporting that the parents do have shifted beliefs in
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we rely from the survey that we collect from parents, right? So in terms of like self-reported, I think this, I mean, yeah, it's like statistically like yeah, I mean within like measurement error. But I mean, yeah, we understand that as well. Yeah. So that's also something that yeah, we need to consider. I think there's also like way when we compare kind of like the distribution wise in terms of, you know, like yeah.
Okay, there's 2 questions online. Please.
Question from Arya Swarnata. How is the test score measured? An in-house instrument or a government-administered standardized test? And he also asked, do you have baseline scores? And is there any differential effect by initial achievement level, for example, low versus high, or performance at baseline?
Yeah. So perhaps like Arya might know better than me, I think, because he was like part of Smeru, but maybe not particularly in this project. So we have this kind of like so again, so the test is not standardized test that we measured. So this is so we created our own kind of test as well during the 2 N lines we collected. So we compare from the yes, sir. Yeah. So these are some of the yeah. So these are like we have like a bunch of questions. So this is how we look at every items of our like readings and also math questions. I mean, to be honest, like I wasn't like in the detail of the kind of questions and but you know like some I think there's this like kind of like pedagogical standard on creating these like questions on measurement for like readings and also math. So we have this several kind of like questions that we collect both for reading and math, and how reliable the test is. So we did also kind of like assessment as well, whether the test that we conducted was like reliable and we can infer from the results. So these are some of the tests we have, and but I'm yeah happy to answer in detail, and perhaps I can refer back to also like my co-author as well if Arya is interested in more detail about how we actually did the test. Yeah.
Probably one of those tests that the RISE developed for this
Yeah.
bigger study that they're.
Yeah. The test, no. Yeah, I think it was like paper-based. So, but maybe we have like kind of like copy if you're interested to look at. Yeah.
I just wonder, because COVID, the school to do the test.
Oh, yeah, that time. Yeah, I think I'm not really, yeah.
Hi everyone. Time is now 2:30, which means we have our snack and study break now. Is the Mexico report out level 2. Thank you.
Part of the instruction.
All possible.
Yeah. So So there's like a moment, I think it was like part of the end line. It was kind of like in between COVID. So some students like go back to class again, and then it was COVID, like another wave was happening. Yeah. So
Questions from Muhammad Irfan. Since teachers were also required to prepare the reports and communicate with parents, did the intervention generate any meaningful changes in teacher behavior or instructional quality? I'm wondering whether the lack of achievement effects suggest that parental engagement increased, but classroom practices remain largely unchanged.
yeah. So we observe the like teacher behavior in terms of their kind of interaction with parents. But we also have information about, it's not really like instruction within class, but in terms of how teachers responded to kind of sorry. So we have also like element for teacher. So for teacher, yeah, so we have teacher motivation, we have teacher report. So teacher report student strength and weakness to parents, and this is this one. So support to individual student index. So this is like a common index I mentioned before. So live teaching duration. We have information about checking and correcting student assignment, giving textbook, have extra tutorial consultation, returning their assignment and give feedback to parents, and yeah, provide enhancement to support remedials. Yeah, so yeah, I think we didn't have any kind of like instructional or like teacher capability measures here. Yeah, so that's, I think kind of like channel that could potentially explain the learning outcomes as well. Yeah.
I'm just curious what happens after the study, after the
Mm.
intervention. Does like the government school district adopt this? This is something that's still going on? Or
Yeah.
what is it like?
Yeah, so no, yeah, I think the program was I think this was also like a way for them to evaluate whether it's kind of like, I mean, also like how this kind of like implementation happen in the field. I mean, we see positive impact on behavioral, but then sometimes we need to convince them because we didn't really see impact on learning outcomes. It was pretty hard to convince government to kind of like continue the project further. So perhaps it's something that we need to do in terms of kind of like advocating for this, and also maybe the results was also like because it happened also during COVID, and the testing happened like 10 months. So maybe it's not, like long enough to observe learning outcomes. So that's also, I think it's, kind of to show, because it's kind of like whether we get a buy-in from the government, right? So I think the metrics, the government is more interested in looking at, looking at scores rather than behavioral. So it was, yeah.
And then, did you actually do the test for primary school, like 1, 2, 3?
So for the testing, 4 to 6, grade 4 to 6, yeah. So not all. Yeah. So we have.
And what's the rationale not trying to test the lower levels? If like the prior will be, it's easier for them to help. When
So this
it's
is
not that difficult.
So this is how the data set was constructed, and in terms of the kind of information about testing, like student tests. So I think one of the reason is that the student already, so because it happens like 14 months, right? So it's already like beyond one academic year. So it's already moving to grade 2. But then, I think, I mean, I cannot remember why, but I think there was a reason why like 3 to 6. Yeah. I think something with pedagogical or something like that.
Probably the test was developed primarily for those level. If I'm not mistaken, it's not the range of tests. Yeah, but it's narrow maybe it's just
Yeah.
better answer. Yeah.
So there is So this is, wait. So we have this like student test around 8,000 from grade 4 to 6, if I remember, yeah.
If I may add to Dika's question, because this is advertised as low cost and low touch and also scalable.
Yeah.
Everything is good. Supposed to be continue but then
Yeah.
so what is your take?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. So why wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Why wasn't mainstream?
Yeah, so yeah, I think this is also kind of like related. Yeah, we I think this is still positive, right? It's I mean leads to like behavioral kind of like outcomes from parents and teachers. But I think like in terms of implementation, it's a bit of like a different story in terms of how we kind of like advocate and kind of like communicate with the government so that they kind of understand the impact, and also because I think like a lot of like the results from the, I mean, we've done a lot of kind of like testing for the learning outcomes and a lot of questions to make sure that, like to reduce as much noise. But I think a lot of like studies looking at learning outcomes is a bit sometimes like noisy, and sometimes we didn't find any impact. Is not because it's not there, but sometimes maybe it's lagged, or maybe it's just not a bit noisy. So yeah.
You mentioned that in terms of the effect on the parents, the magnitude is bigger for low educational attainment parents, and I think it makes sense because now like they know how to support their children, and then to what extent for the outcomes, learning outcomes, disaggregated by the parents' involvement and the parents' educational attainment. So it means that my prior will be then the effect will be stronger for lower educated parents, and then that's useful. Like that's a very clear information because they can really change in terms of the path for the children going forward.
Yeah.
They do better in learning outcomes and
Yeah.
etc. For those who really need the help.
Yeah, I think the story also relates to like intergenerational kind of like mobility, and I think also like starting from from parents with lower education background. It's also, I mean, they can like start from like lower baseline, so this like intervention kind of like help them like shift their behavior further. Yeah.
Yes, sir, please.
I just wondered, what's the kind of high level thinking behind asking parents to be more involved? Is it just feel like schools are hopeless now and then we need to ask the parents to contribute more? Is it like a bit of shifting the burden from the school to the parents? If so, especially for lower educated parents, and you show it's all women, is that a lot of burden to impose on them in terms of the time they have to invest, the mental capacity they have to invest?
Yeah. I think like theoretically, this would be, like to engage and also like build accountability system between parent and teachers. But I think your observation kind of like a bit makes sense because there's also a lot of like, I mean, but we didn't have any evidence on this. But then in Indonesia, there's a lot of like stories qualitatively mentioned that teachers, like it's a lot of, like they have to do a lot of things, but then with really low pay. But I don't think that's, I don't know. I might not, don't have that a lot of agreement in that direction in terms of whether that's because of teachers are overburdened. But I think the kind of like motivations come from like, like to improve engagement, and so that parents knows what students are learning at school. Yeah. But I think that's an interesting observation, whether, like if there's any like variation as well when teachers maybe I don't know. In terms of their burden at school, maybe I don't know if we can compare like between public or private school, but so
I think I can say something on that. I mean, public primary school, I think is really under-resourced in Indonesia in terms of the class capacity. It's like really like 35, 40 students in a classroom. There's no LSA. There's no like someone assisting. So I think the parents' involvement kind of like as part of the students' learning is important. And then especially when we talk about public school, and then especially when we talk about the lower income. But
then I feel that the government should do more instead of shifting
Yeah,
it to
of course, of
parents. Yeah, so yeah.
Any more questions? So if not, I'm going to add to the discussion, and especially going back to the heterogeneity story, which seems to be important.
Yeah.
And so parents with more resource probably can be more engaged, more free time, right? But you see that everyone's engagement is increased by the intervention, but the gain is more if parent actually not only engage but can really help with the homework.
Yeah.
And that also on the I mean that a specific type of parents can actually help with the homework, right? Those who are involved. So the heterogeneity is really important in terms of the ultimate outcome, which is not only engagement but
right.
And also probably in terms of the responses in social desirability, trying to look good in survey that may differ. That also, where heterogeneity comes in.
I think, so I think we might have done something with that, but with the social disability, so with not sure whether within that. So I need to double check, but then so like it's a kind of like measurement error or something like that. So, and then for the heterogeneity, I really agree, but then there's also kind of like limit that we can do. I mean, we have a lot of like observation, like around 8,000, but then again, like when we split, sometimes it's a bit noisy as well, especially when we're looking at learning outcomes. Yeah, so but when for parental and also teacher behavior, I think I mean, when we run heterogeneity analysis, I think that's quite informative as well. Yeah.
Any more questions?
What about the heterogeneity on the student side? Are we here assuming that every student likes or is happy if they have parents involved, like, asking them what they do at school? Because I've seen some students actually don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're more independent, they don't want to be,
Yeah, so maybe that's also kind of like when I mentioned explain a bit of like backfire, like when like a lot of like monitoring might not work much for like older children. So that's the heterogeneity we did for like grade 4, 5, 6. We observe a little bit more for like a positive significant effect for like grade 4, but not So potentially, like it's harder to monitor and manage older students. Yeah.
Any more questions online and not here? Then, okay, I think that we can give a round of applause to Prita. Thank you for that.